Okay, so today, after a long, belated break, I'm gonna talk about all these. Okay, so like I promised last time, I'm gonna talk about my facial piercings. I guess I'll just start with all these down here, my nose, my forehead, and if you can't tell, after a few videos I finally got my second one put back in there. There's a whole story with that, so I'll explain it later. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my lip piercings right here. Personally for me, I like to wear the little hoops on the sides, and the center I usually wear a stud, just because it gets a little uncomfortable having a single hoop right here in the middle, and it's hard to, like, you know, drink stuff. So when I originally got these done, these were pierced with a flat back just like this one is. I'm not going to flip my lip open, but if you want to look it up, it's called a labrae stud. It's got a welded flat back, and then the front of it screws off so you can change it and it comes out backwards. But when I first got these done, the sides were a 16 gauge, and I actually pierced this one myself at a 14. Disclaimer, don't do your own piercings unless you're an actual body piercer, please. I've seen so many people pierce their own stuff by taking a sewing needle or something like that and shoving it in their face, and that is not good for you or your body. You can't sterilize a sewing needle with alcohol or setting it on fire or boiling it or something like that. You have to have a sterilizer to make sure your equipment is clean. And usually you're not going to drop $1,000 on a sterilizer just to pierce yourself at home. And like, I know some people are teenagers and they want a piercing and their parents won't let them. Well, you might want to wait until you can make it to a tattoo shop, because you can get an infection. Like, just please don't do it. It's so nasty. But as far as the lip piercings go, pain-wise, it's a little bit sharp. You can feel it go through the layers, but once it's through with that pop, usually you're okay. Rating pain scale, maybe a 3 out of 10 at the worst. My nose piercings. Now, I've had my septum here done twice. The first time and the second time I had it pierced at a 14 gauge, so it's a little bit thicker than average. I did get it pierced with a little horseshoe shape with the little balls on the bottom part. I mean, it was mostly so you can flip it up and down and kind of hide it a little bit, but the worst part about it was my eyes watered. There's a little sweet spot of skin right here in the tip of your nose, and that's what it's supposed to go through. If it's too high and it goes through the center cartilage bone right here, you gonna feel it. It ain't gonna be fun. That's not where it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be right here in the tip of your nose. If you can see mine, it's right there, and it moves. Now, I did gauge mine up. From experience, not fun. But I started at a 14 and I went up to a 10 gauge, just because I like the heavier metal look. These side nostrils, I originally got done at a 16 gauge. So everything I'm wearing is rose gold, and these are all hinged hoops. So you like pop it open and then it pops back into itself and it's completely seamless. That's my favorite. But these I actually got pierced with a flat back labrae, just like this guy, because I was so paranoid about it falling out. Now, most people aren't going to wear a 16 gauge in their nose. Sometimes it'll stretch open so you can put bigger jewelry in it, but that's usually when the piercing is really, really old. So if you want to wear something a little bit thicker, make sure you mention it when you get pierced and see if they can do it for you. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but I do have a couple of little scars right here because I did my own bridge piercing twice. Unfortunately for me, I don't have enough of a gap between where my bone actually is and where the skin sits, because you have to be able to pinch it like this, pull it forward, and put a bar through it. But if the skin is too tight, it'll start trying to push that bar forward, and then it might eventually fall out. I noticed that mine was starting to migrate, and I had to take it out both times. So, woe is me. As far as pain-wise for the nose, worst part for me was probably the nostril, The septum is moderately easy. The septum goes through skin, and the nostril goes through cartilage. So for the septum, probably a 4 out of 10. And for the nostril, for me, maybe about a 4 out of 10 as well. Take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I do have a head tattoo. I was fine. And I have my palms done. So, just, yeah. Take my suggestions with a grain of salt. I can tell you kind of what it feels like, but until you get it done yourself, it's going to be hard for me to explain how painful it actually is. Anyway, I was contemplating doing my eyebrow. From what I've heard, it's not that bad. I've never actually done it, but it is a surface piercing, which essentially it just goes through the top layer of skin. So most of the time, people are okay with those. Now, as far as these guys go, these are microdermals. Move my bang a little bit so you can see. Yes, I do have 2 of them. Before I got these redone, I had a single bar that had 2 microdermals on either side that went completely under the skin. And from that zoom in, you could probably see I have some scar tissue in between from where it used to be. These are individuals, so if you think of like a sewing machine foot that has a long end and a short end, and the gem will sit right about here. So what you do is you make a little hole. They use something called a dermal punch, or like it's like a medical scalpel. It's like a circle, and then it's got a blade all the way around, and it's flat. So you make a little incision, and then you turn it, and you make a little pocket for the foot to sit in. Pop the jewelry in, and then you pretty much keep some pressure on it for the first few days, and then it heals, and it's just an implant under the skin. So you can take the top off, you can change it, you can put a little spike on it, you can do whatever you want. Most of the time it's just going to be pressure and a little sharpness, and then you're done. As far as the dermal pain level, I was honestly surprised. After the initial dermal punch, I just felt pressure. Like, I didn't feel a lot after the actual incision, but some people might have a different reaction to that. I probably had that because I already have scar tissue and it wasn't really sensitive for me. But personally, for the dermals, especially on the forehead, pain level maybe a 4 out of 10 for the incision, and like I said, I felt pressure. Some people might feel it closer to a 6 or a 5 out of 10. That was all of the face jewelry I have on the center front. Next time I'll talk about ear gauging and why you should never get cartilage done with a piercing gun. Alright, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little explanation of my facial piercings, and I'll be doing more tattoos, and I'll see about doing a couple other videos too. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.